Welcome to the reprise of episode 5 of SPCs Unleashed. Today we have Niko hosting, and he is doing weird and wonderful things to us as we get into leading by example. Niko, take us away, you torture man.
Yeah, also welcome from our side. As Mark said, it's a reprise, a redo with a new format. Last time was Stephan who prepared everything. And now he's also able to talk a little bit more because it's one of his heart or his topics he likes, he loves. So this show, what's about this show? Ali prepared also something. He forgot that he's not here, but he was full of enthusiasm. He wanted to talk about respect, but we respect that he's not here at the moment. My main focus will be authenticity. Authenticity. Oh gosh, so difficult in English. Stefan will talk some German about Führungshappen, which means leadership bites. Okay, yummy. And Mark is oh no, another English word. Insatiable about learning. So let's see how bad my English can come in the next 1 hour if it starts this way.
We'll
What's this
make it
dimension?
difficult.
Yeah, or we'll have fun anyway. So, what is this episode about? Before I go into theory, I would like to ask you, what is your passion? What do you take out of this episode? What are you burning for, or whatever makes sense in English? Make your own sentences. Stefan.
Yeah, well, good morning. I think it's the keyword inspiration, right? Leading by example. It always brings to my mind the sand pit, right? As kids being in the sand pit, you saw some other guys having better tools, other tools, and you get curious, right? So the sandpit effect for me is creating followers and therefore future leaders. I'm passionate about young leaders becoming real leaders and leading by example.
Cool, thank you. That's what we share. Development leaders. Thank you, Mark. What is your passion, your surprise, your challenge?
Look, for me, it's about helping great leaders be really understood by the people they lead. There's just such a consistent thread for me of the leader that I know in a coaching conversation and what they want for their people, and then the leader that their people think they are. And there's so often such a large gap between the two. And if you can create that connection between them as human beings, so much amazing stuff happens. So that's my passion.
Great. So to be able to see your own blind spot and see how other people see you in opposite how you see yourself. Great.
It's just
And yeah,
taking myths out. It's people think of senior leaders in a particular way. And you so often as a coach, you hear them having a conversation. Oh, such and such, he wouldn't like this and he wouldn't want to hear that. I was like, no, I know who that is you're talking about. That's not who they are. I want you to know who they really are.
oh
And I
great.
think, Mark,
Maybe
you're already mentioning something that is really important in this is lead by example. It's a relationship, right? That you create as a coach with your coachee, or even being a leader. It's about leadership. It's about relationship,
Yeah.
which I think is pretty important.
great. And I would like to do a bridge to what is passionable, where my passion is. It's about being authentic so that the people realize who they are and that they are able to find their own leadership style. It's not copy paste something else. It's finding your true self, behaving really authentic. This means, by the way, being the same person outside of meetings. When you go for a beer, that you are the same person and not somebody else. If you have a social event, that you are the same person. This includes your tone of voice, includes your body language. And the other thing, it includes also how you handle feedback, not only asking and say, we have a great learning culture, and then yourself are not open for a feedback. So it's a lot of being the person you are. If you don't like feedback, don't say we have a feedback culture. Then we don't have one in your company or in your area. So be authentic. And another thing is that I have passion about is, and I think it was also David Marquet's book who brought more light in this section, was about thinking how is the time distributed in meetings. I often see that coaches, leaders take too much time of a meeting, and just being aware of how much time you are talking and others are talking. That's also a part of developing, being a leader, or maybe what Mark said, you expect from leaders something, like I'm going in a meeting and I'm setting the tone, and this is the agenda, and that's what I want. And then I talk. And just say, maybe it's not a person, I'm somebody who loves to listen, who loves to develop people. So why change because you're a manager or a leader now? It's also one part of my passion. Perfect. Just want to see if you want to add something, but if not, you remember last week was a Eurovision, was about a singing contest. We had also Australian people there, so Australia is also Europe. So many songs, and I thought to myself, if this core competency, leading by example, would be a song, which song would it be, and which lyrics you would take out? Just to summarize before we start. Yeah, let's start with Stephan.
Yeah, as Mark said, Niko is always challenging us. And I really had to sit down and think. And I had to dig into my past. And all of a sudden, this song, Brave, from Sarah Bareilles, popped up. It's an empowering pop song. And she's one of the leading 100 singing ladies on this world, according to statistics. And the song encourages listeners to be true to themselves and to speak their truth. Why did I pick this song? Because I think, and probably we'll come back to that one later as well, too many potential good leaders have an imposter syndrome, right? They don't speak up, they don't show up, they are too modest. And the song for me is a good guidance because it says, say what you want to say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I want to see you be brave. And I think, yeah, that's my song.
Perfect. We have to put a reference in our Spotify episode of this song. Mark.
I have to tell you, Niko, when I saw that question, I went, "What are you doing to us?" And for the next 3 hours, it's like, think of a song, think of a song, think of a song. Everything I thought of was really corny. And then my choice in the end was Moby Dick. Either of you familiar with Moby Dick?
Not with the book, but with a movie for kids.
Right. No, it was a Led Zeppelin song.
Okay,
And
this one. Sorry. Oh, yeah.
And it's basically
You're the old guys.
It's a 25-minute drum solo. So there are no lyrics. And I used to listen to that song a lot when I was still coding. It was one of my favorite things to code to. The reason I chose it though is if you think about the role a drummer plays in the band, the drummer sets the beat and the rhythm that the band shines against. And that's why I chose it, because I think, a good leader sets the beat and they create the backdrop against which great performances happen from their people.
Oh, that's great. That's great. They don't beat them, they set the beat. That's great for leaders.
Okay, we got the title for today.
Yeah, it's really. I'm happy I asked this question. I've seen, by the way, for the audience, how Mark struggled with it. So, I still have to find lyrics. I still have to find songs. By the way, this was the last question in preparation. It was hidden somewhere until everything was finished. So I'm so happy, Mark, for this picture I have now. It's really an important one. What I've chosen was from a movie, not the original one. Sister Act. I will follow him. I will follow him. Follow him wherever he may goes. So in this direction.
See, how did I know you were going to pick something so corny, Niko?
And the idea is, I don't know. I really don't know the song. Maybe it has a different meaning, and it just picked up these lyrics. But I love the idea. If you have a leader, you have to follow him. It's not something you. It's a recognition you earned. It's not something that's on your CV or on your card. It's something you earned. That's why people following you, and that's really one important thing for me. Leaders have people who follow them because they are doing great stuff, because they have a authority that was not given to them; it was earned.
Yeah.
And with that, we are going towards theory, because also one part. And this time, I really copy paste the preparation from Stephan years ago, and it was also one of the sentences. It's really about the authority you have gained, and not you have given. So you have to earn it, this authority. And another part of this dimension is the culture. You are forming a culture as a leader, the way you are, the way you behave, the way you interact with people. And in the SAFE theory, if you remember your trainings, or if you give your trainings as an SPC, you have this generative culture as one of the terms. A generative culture where you say we have a learning culture, we don't kill messengers, we embrace failure, and so on and so on. So having an environment where we are thankful of learning, thankful of not stupid mistakes, but mistakes that happened once, that we can learn of it. And it sounds in theory so easy. Create a generative culture. But can you, both of you, share a story about a success or a failure about this generative culture, trying to establish such a culture? And I would like to start with Mark.
This one was really easy for me. I went straight back to, it was a company called Attaché. The leader was a guy called Dave. And I'd met him actually at a large enterprise, and he decided he was sick of large enterprise. He wanted to go somewhere he could really make a difference. So he took a role as the CIO at this company, and he was just relentless about generating positive change. And as soon as there was an opportunity, he would act on it. You know, one weekend he went, there's just not enough whiteboards. So he bought whiteboard paint, and he came in and he painted all the walls in the area of his dev teams. And then he was like, well, my engineering people don't interact enough with my business people. I want to create organic connections. And he loved puzzles. So he would start bringing in 2,000-piece puzzles, and he'd set them up in the kitchen room. And he'd encourage his people, like, if you're in there making a cup of tea, stop and see if you can put a few pieces in, because it created natural connections between people where they'd bump into each other, they'd spend 10 minutes putting a few extra pieces on the jigsaw puzzle. And they're just two examples of a very, very long list of examples of things that he just kept doing to go, I want this to be an amazing place to work, and particularly an amazing place to work together. So it changed so much that it was probably about a year and a half in, the managing director of the company, I went up for a visit, and Dave said, we've got to go and meet with Mike, the MD. And I said, okay, what are we chatting about? And he said, he came to me last week and he said, I don't know what you've done, but whatever it is, we need it in the whole company, because the engineers are supposed to be the quiet, introvert, boring part of the floor. And my sales and marketing teams and my channel management teams are meant to be where all the energy is. But every time I go to your side of the floor, it's just alive. And then I come back to my side of the floor and it feels dead. So whatever you're doing, I want to make sure that we start to do it over here. And so that conversation was, how did we start to make it an entire agile company as opposed to just an agile product development group? So yeah, easy example and a fun place to coach.
I really like what you said, Mark. And my side is less a story than more on an observation. And to be honest, when it comes to culture, and the theory of culture, I get a little bit sick and tired about it. Why is that? In my professional life, I've seen so many culture initiatives issued by HR department, by organizations. And if you talk to people, they even responded and said, hey, I don't even know which culture initiative is in place now, right? They're overtaking themselves. So if we think about culture as the sum or the result of our behaviors, and we're talking about lead by example, I would again start with C-level and senior managers, right? If we want to transform an organization, as you just explained to us, Mark, right? You need those examples. So we need to understand how they work, where they are, what's their context. And sometimes, let's be honest, most of the time, the C-level agenda is different from the transformation roadmap, right? And that creates roadblocks. So if I look back, what I've studied, what I've read, and one of the thought leaders in that area for me is Gudrun Happich in Germany. She's an executive coach, and she comes out with a new book, Der Führungshappen, Leadership Bites, where she explains that there is a prerequisite. If you want to have a good culture, you should understand what C-level and senior management and the people have as wishes and concerns, right? If you don't understand people, you're probably coming up with the wrong plan, the wrong strategy, the wrong whatever it is. So, and she says and states, okay, if leaders have to exemplify, you as a coach, you have to understand what counts first for them. And interestingly, she says, good C-level people, senior managers, what counts for them is emotional persuasiveness. Means how do you convince people to follow you, right? How do you make transparent your agenda? And I think if we can tackle that as coaches, if we start understanding what other people's wishes are, not only team members, middle management, also senior management, probably get a much better understanding and a much better base for the daily work to generate a good culture that is really what just Mark said, right? Have an example that stimulates, have an example that initiates collaboration, for example. And I think that's one of my concerns. That's one of my things I probably have to deepen over the next few weeks and months, also to become a better coach and to lead as an example as a coach.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if Mark. Yeah, I
I'm
thought so.
gonna
Yeah.
I'm gonna add, and I thought about adding while Niko was talking, but it feels like the thread, and it's a really short edition. One of my favorite quotes about leadership was a Jerry Weinberg quote. Surprise, surprise. And he says, a leader is somebody people choose to follow.
Yep.
And that was just running through my head as I was listening to you, Stephan.
Exactly. Yeah. And
Yeah,
that's the
thank you very-
coaching aspect, right? Niko,
Thank you very much for this observation. No, nothing to sorry. I wasn't sure if you want to add something. It was really a cool observation. Thank you very much. So in my case, maybe you know this story when people start and say, a friend of mine has a problem. This is a story of a friend of mine, not my story, because it's a little bit embarrassed. No. If I have to summarize or give it a title, it would be the business theater. So a leader, a manager leader, always saying how important failures are, how important this learning culture, not a failure culture, a learning culture is. But it always felt like, I think he's just saying it and not feeling it. And you realize this very fast. So in the first system demo in SAFE, he just complained about how slow they are, how stupid mistakes they are doing. If you go and reach him out and have a question and did something wrong, he was mean to you. In a social event, when he had too much beer or quite too much beer, he sounded different than on stage on town hall. And it was really a negative example, just saying blah blah buzzwords and not behaving the same. And it was really for this colleague, it was really hard time to be as a coach there. And what triggers me when I heard your stories, a quote of a colleague of mine, maybe he stole it from somebody who is famous, but I heard him several times saying it. Culture is the shadow of organization. You cannot change the shadow. You have to change the people who are playing, so the shadow changes. And that happens. If he plays something else, you will never have a shadow of a learning culture.
Yeah.
So thank you, guys. Mark?
It ties in, and just a little bit with that. Patrick Lencioni in The Advantage talked about, when he was talking about values, he talked about the idea of committed values and aspirational values. And committed values are the ones that you know you can live every day, and aspirational ones are the ones you know you'd like to live, but you're not yet capable of it. And that notion of being really clear about where you'll hold the line and where you'd like to be, but acknowledging, because there's nothing so destructive as the story you just described, Niko, of a leader standing on stage going, this is a blame-free culture, and then their actions not mirroring their words. And I think there's a question sometimes of going, what's the set of values you can hold today in your environment? And then what's the set you'd like to hold, but you can't yet hold to them until the environment changes a bit? Because you never know what's driving a leader's behavior. As I'm sure you guys have been through this, as the coach who gets the leader downloading to you at the end of the day about the hell they've been through that none of their people know about.
Mhm.
It's very easy to judge without understanding.
Exactly.
true.
I'm with you. You never know the background story and what pressure and other stuff is around. It's easy to judge. I'm with you. Let's put another piece of theory in this conversation. When we go to SAFe and see what kind of attributes does a good leader has to have, and when we go to SAFe knowledge base, we see there are 6 dimensions or 6 attributes. Sorry, highlighted there. One is, oh gosh, insatiable learning, unersättliches Lernen. You're really hungry for learning. You want to learn. You don't say, I finished. I'm now a leader, manager, CEO, whatever. I don't have to continue. It's really the need. I have to learn. Having appetite for learning. The other is offensive. Oh, yes. Oh gosh, it's just morning. Authenticity is the other one. Emotional competence. Courage is number 4. Growing others is number 5. And decentralized decision making, number 6. If you go through all of those, which one was in your mandate, in your job? Which was the easiest one or the most difficult one? Can you share 1 or 2 examples? Easiest one you have seen, difficult one you have seen, most difficult one. Mark.
Um, I don't know that I would say it was the easiest one, but for me, the first one is learning, insatiable learning. Whenever I start coaching a senior leader, I want to know how they like to learn. And, it's easy if you find one who likes to read, because then it's like, fantastic, here's some books. Read the books and let's talk about what you see in them. And, I'll never forget back when I was coaching M. Campbell Pretty. And she was one of those people. She loved to learn. She loved to read books. So I would just go, here's the next book you need to read. And she would put Post-its on the pages she wanted to talk about. And then I'd go into her office at the end of the day. I'd say, what's on the backlog? And she'd pull out this huge pile of Post-its and go, I've got questions. And it creates a backdrop for an amazing coaching relationship, because you are exploring the things they find interesting in the books. And as you listen to that, you go, oh, I know which book's next. But not all of them read. And I think you've just got to hunt for what's the way you like to learn. Will you listen to a book on Audible? Do you like podcasts? Will you watch a YouTube video? Will you attend a webinar with me? And accompanying them on that learning journey, so that you're giving yourself the seeds of the conversations, because I think once the learning starts, it just keeps going.
Yeah.
But the more the insights come from someone else and you're helping them with the processing, as opposed to trying to give them the insights, the more effective it is. So that's easiest. If you go most difficult, I go, it depends. Because, every leader I've coached has had natural strengths. They didn't get to be a senior leader without having some qualities and strengths that took them down that path. And then inevitably there's some blind spots, because we all have blind spots. And so it's a question of going, where are you naturally strong? Can we perhaps amplify the impact of your natural strengths? And what can we do to just gently tease away at some of the areas of possibility?
Great. What I can connect very well is the learners part. So when I go to a mandate as an SPC or an SPCT, I have to find the people who I can work together. So we doing this together. It's not me being Superman and doing everything. And I've tried to scan the room and find people who have this wish of learning. And I try to find the people who I think they are authentic. Maybe my radar is wrong sometimes, but usually it works well. So I need people, I need learners, I need authentic people, and I'm looking out for people who have a good tracking record about developing others, because it's also very, very important. And knowing that you're not the best, that's why you are a leader, or you are somebody who helps other people developing their skills. And I start working with them. So these are the easiest for me also to see in the room, and also work with those people before I start working with everybody who is in the leadership. And the most difficult, in my opinion, is the emotional the emotional competence, because emotional competence sometimes sounds wrong. It's not about the competence you have in your own emotions or understanding or feeling other people's. For me, emotional competence is knowing your own resources, your own weaknesses. Where are you strong? And this is emotional competence. It's not this we can hands in circle and I'm touchy feeling. It's knowing about who am I, what are my skills, what are my resources, and not so many people thought about this. And it's always cool. Yeah, I think I mentioned several times I'm a systemic coach too. It's really a good job or a great endeavor to find these resources, these strengths. Who am I really? And this is emotional competence. And the most people are not aware of this part. Stephan.
Interesting coaching perspectives, and let me pick up your threads. When I'm thinking back the last few months, I had quite a few occasions where I could interact with C-level senior management, and I did some good job, sometimes not. Why is that? Probably I didn't understand them well, right? I'm going back to what Gudrun Happich says as an executive coach. She says, okay, let's have a look at the facts and figures. If you enter that area of senior management, a lot of things will change, right? New laws, different rules, right? You're coming from your trade, you think you know it, all of a sudden it's a different world. Unspoken secret codes, right? Hidden agendas. We all know those words somehow, but are we really aware as coaches that, yes, some of us as SPCs, SPCTs coaches, we will not only support essential safe implementation, setting up portfolios, we will interact with those guys, right? And she says, and that was a bummer for me, those guys, 30% of their time is due to a fair appearance to their top management. So that's time gone. 60% of their agenda is work associated with building and maintaining relationships. So it's about networking. That leaves like 10% for the transformation or any other work, right? What does that mean? I have to be aware of that. And I think with that respect and that perspective, the most difficult one is probably growing others. I think and I believe senior management does want to do it, but do they really have the time?
Yeah.
How can we support them that they can grow others? Because it's all about networking. It's about how they appear, right? Do I have the right suit on? Do I speak in the right tone? Do I make a good appearance in a town hall meeting? That's not what we try or what we expect from these guys, right? We think, oh, it's transformation time, 100% attention on these issues. No, it's not, right? So I think, and that's what drives me the last few months. How can I help these guys growing others? It's easier for me talking to RTs, team coaches, to art roles, to maybe leaders in an LPM than when it comes to C-level and senior management. And that's probably something I will pursue the next few months as well, because I think at the beginning of a transformation, we talk about the tipping point. If I can get that buy-in through my coaching activities, and if I do a good job, and as you said, Mark, understanding where they are, right, at the beginning, understanding what kind of sticky notes do they have they want to be solved. That's probably a good key for me as a coach.
Great. I have now one book more on my shelf. Thank you very much. It's incredible to see these numbers. And I have one story of one leader who inspired me. Was one of my former bosses who really was able to spend a lot of time, or it felt like spending a lot of time about each of individuals of us. So uh, I was then younger. I was at the beginning of my coaching career. I was still a great developer. I'm doing everything great what I'm doing. Haha, no. And I never had to advertise myself. He always have seen me. He always had time to cherish what I'm doing and celebrating what I'm doing. So it was really a cool feeling whenever I came back to my home base. So as an external, you maybe once a month, twice a month in your home base, that he knows everything and says, "Hey, you've done this and this with a client, or you tried that and that. That was cool. Let's go out and celebrate it together with the team. And we celebrated not only my achievements, 5 other achievements. So he was very great in seeing you, and it felt so honest. I also had bosses where I thought they just say, "Oh, well done," because now it's a month over. I have to say something nice to you because I'm I'm your manager or I'm your line manager. And it was so cool having a person who really not only managed his people but also really said so nice things and see them and develop them as a true leader. Not only the one he was a line manager, also the others he was connected to. And it was a great inspiration of me seeing how proud he is, how his eyes sparkle when he talks about me, about other people, and it was really heart opening. That's really a great example of a leader. Mark, do you have a leader who inspired you, a special person?
Yes. And it's funny, I was talking to Rebecca a little while ago, and she's like, if you call out a favorite leader, how do all the other great leaders you've coached feel? But I can't help myself, right? Because I can look down the years and I can go, wow, I've coached some amazing leaders, but there is one who just stands out, and her name's Nat Field. And we first connected because she's an insatiable learner. And she reads and she studies and she listens to podcasts and she just learns. But she also has a huge focus on building her teams. And, the first thing she does whenever she starts a new leadership role is go, I've got to get the right team. And she'll face into the hard conversations and really invests in building her team because she knows that it's through her team that she succeeds. And she also naturally cares about them. Like, she's brilliant at crafting a motivating mission and pitching it, but she deeply cares. And, my favorite example is she's Melbourne based. And the first time that I was doing a PI planning support for her in Melbourne, I went, I'm going to stay in a hotel rather than have to catch the train in to be there early, train home late at night after a management review. I'm just going to stay in a hotel the night before and the night of the first day to make my life easier. And I told her I was doing that. And the next day I got an email from her executive assistant going, here's your hotel details. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm just an expensive consultant. What are you doing looking after me like that? And she said, yeah, but you're part of the team. And that
Right.
caring for your people, it's phenomenal. And, you can tell a great leader because, just like Nat, anybody who's ever worked for Nat longs to work for her again. And, they just follow her around from company to company going, we don't really care what the company is. We just want to work for you again. So easy one for me.
Wow, natural caring was my keyword there. Thank you very much. Stephan, one leader you admire or influenced you, and why?
You gave us really tough triggers this week, Niko. And I couldn't name the one inspiring leader. But then it came back to Bill Begg. He's a Kiwi. He's a sports coach. And I like this guy because he always came up and he had an old sheet hanging up in the training room, and that sheet I got a picture of it on my LinkedIn profile, and on that sheet it said there are only 3 types of people: those that watch it happen, those that say what happened, and those that make it happen. And Bill made it happen, right? He was straight to the point. And if I have to summarize, those leaders who inspired me the most were those who were straightforward to the point. They knew what they were talking about, right? No bullshit bingo. Sometimes it really hurts what they said. It does, right? Even in sports, you're doing something wrong, you're not successful. Hey, change, right? What it instilled in me is I want to follow them. I want to take out some nuggets or some snippets, what they do, how they do it. I want to find out why they do it. And that influenced my journey in learning quite a lot, right? So inspiration for me is can I take something out of these people and really make it happen in my learning journey? So yeah, I had to learn quite a lot. And as I've said recently to my mate Sasha, my learning curve was never steeper than the last like 7-8 years, right? Because I still have those inspiring leaders in front of me, or beside me, or even behind me, right? And I really like that.
Great. So a leader doesn't not only watch and command, he also does do things, makes things happen. That's great. Thank you very much.
Straightforward to the point, and yeah,
Yeah.
transparency sometimes hurts, but it's a good thing. I like it.
You said I had a lot of hard triggers. For me, the last one was the most hardest because, hey, we are leaders too. We are. Maybe it's we are too humble to say we are, but at the end we are leaders. So if I ask you, this core competency or this dimension is about lead by example. How you do lead by example? And Mark, please share a story.
Look, I'm going to start with you have to be authentic. As a coach, we read lots of books, and lots of those books are about leadership theory. And you read a book and you go, oh, that's really cool, and then you try it on, and you've got to find the things that are really you, so that people know you're genuine, and that when you say something, when you act in a certain way, it's the truth. It's not an act. So that's for me the beginning. But my favorite definition when it comes to leadership was Jim Collins in Good to Great, where he talked about this idea of a level 5 leader. And he said they're humble, but they're fiercely determined. When there's a problem, they choose to look in the mirror and ask themselves how they contributed to it instead of looking out the window and ask who's to blame. And they invest in setting up the company to go on to even greater heights when they've gone. And it's one of the ways you can tell the mark of a true leader is that the organization doesn't go down when they move on. The organization goes up even more because they prepared for their successor. And if you think about yourself as a coach, right, that's your job, to set them up to be even more successful without you. So I think you've just got to live that at your center every day. And one warning while I'm speaking, and here's the easy warning. As a coach or an SPC, you should never have any authority. But quite often you'll wind up with an awful lot of earned authority and influence. And there's a danger sign I've learnt to watch for, because I will hear from one of the executives, somebody came to them with some harebrained idea and they said, oh, we've checked it with Mark and he's happy with it. We can do it. And it's like, no. The organization's starting to think that Mark's opinion carries weight. If you hear that, you've got to fix it, because you should never be perceived as actually being a decision maker.
I really can second that, Mark, word by word. Just yesterday, I had a value stream identification workshop, and at the end, the senior leader in the room said, yeah, we will follow your advice. It will be beneficial. And I said, no, guys. It's your transformation journey, right? So coming back to that trigger, Niko, me as a leader, I sometimes struggled in the past with the question, how can I be a good leader, right? And tying back to what just Mark said, in the end, for me, it always boils down to authenticity. So it's the same topic like Mark just mentioned it, right? Sometimes it's, for me, the best is based on what I've learned, based on what I've read, it's gut feeling, right? So be authentic. Don't play a role like you mentioned it, Niko, at the beginning, right? And one of the kind of signs that I'm probably doing a good job is if people come to me and ask for advice. But then again, as Mark said, I'm not the guy who decides, right? How can I help them with asking the right questions so they find their advice they need in the right context?
Yeah.
And a few years ago, one person asked me, how would you describe yourself as a leader? And I couldn't do that. And then I read some stuff from Adam Grant, and there I got the enlightenment, right? He coins that term confident humility. Be confident in what you do, be be humble enough, right? Every day. What you don't know, you don't know. But confident humility. And I guess that's something that helped me also with sometimes falling into that imposter syndrome. I'm not worth it. I probably can't do it. I can't speak to that executive or C-level. Confident humility. Just do it, but be humble enough to know what you can do and what you can't do, or where you have to invest in your further journey. So authenticity again.
Great, thank you. I can triple this up. It's the same on my side of authenticity. Uh, when I was studying, I tried to finance my own study by teaching, and it was a great time because nobody did the PhD because IT was so needed that the people just went out for jobs. So I was able to teach people beneath me, the years beneath me, and I've seen so many people being strange teachers and strange leaders too by just doing the knowing everything, not being humble. So when we ask something, you realize they cannot answer. They're just making things up. And of course, we are smart people as students. We try to find where does the doesn't ends up, and asking more and asking more. And then you realize, oh gosh, you've lost already, but you're still on your higher ground and trying to say, I'm smarter than you. I personally never take myself smart, serious, whatever. Um, I'm there. I want to do something together with the people. I want that those people grow. I'm part of this team. I know that I have an impact. I'm not stupid. I know by being there, I have an influence on the people. But I don't count myself as the big leader, the big knowledge guy, or whatever. So I'm always thankful, or try to be thankful at least. I think I'm also humble, and yeah, I try not to take myself seriously. So it could be just another coach. It would be as well as great as without me. And what I love to do is it's part of my authenticity is humor, even if it's no humor for others. So I try to disarm people with humor and also humor about myself. So that's how I try to lead. And I had, I think, a year ago a nice talk with Eric Willicke, about thought leadership, and he told me it's never yourself who says I'm a thought leader. It's other people around you who say you're a thought leader. And maybe this applies also to leader. I don't know, but it was a great sentence because somebody asked me, "In which area are you a thought leader?" And I said, "I think I'm a fairy tale uncle and not a thought leader." And the talk with Eric was really great. It's not what you think about yourself; it's what others think. It's like in Mark's story, it's who is following this person when you leave the job. It's not what you think about yourself; it's what other thinks about you. With that, I have one last question. Have I missed something? Because I changed some triggers. You had maybe other stories to say that didn't fit in my triggers. What have I missed, Mark?
Look, I'd love to jump in, and really, this is a bit of advice. If you're an SPC and you are new to coaching leadership, and this is really, it's strong in my head at the moment because of a chat I had with somebody this week, and they're at a company that's far enough down their safe journey that their senior executives up to CEO level are getting really interested. And they shared the story of this group of very senior executives going into a leading safe with an SPC and then leaving the room feeling utterly humiliated because they felt like the trainer was just talking down to them and not respecting them.
Mhm.
And I think it's an easy mistake to make is to go when we talk about agile leadership to look and go, well, you've got to be this magic recipe, and anything that you're doing that's not aligned to these agile leadership principles is wrong, and it's just so the wrong way to start. If you are coaching a leader, learn who they are, learn what it is about them that's special, help them to shine the light they already have. And then over time, you'll be invited to explore some of the other things. But start by finding what's great and amplifying it. Don't start by looking at things that perhaps according to the recipe they're not quite doing right, because it's the quickest way for you to lose the right or the invitation to be coaching them.
Yeah, and I will pick up that word from you, Mark, amplification, right? What's the goal of everything we're discussing today, right? Why should leadership be good examples? The ultimate goal, again, is for the organization to be adaptive to the changing world, right? how do we allow that? How do we create such an environment? And I think one thing we didn't talk about is how do we create an environment and a culture where people are really allowed to speak up, telling the truth, so that we move forward in a really fast way, right? And that's my duty as well as a leader. Create that environment, and you will see amazing things will happen. Stuff you didn't script, stuff you didn't moderate, stuff you didn't think about it. It's the individual that probably sets the trigger for success, right?
Great, thank you. Let's go over to measure and grow. I would, each time we go through, how do we measure and how do we grow in this dimension? And this time it looked like boring, but I think it isn't. Let's tell first what my idea was. I started first with leaders create a safe environment for change that supports risk taking without fear of consequences to self esteem, status, or career. And then I moved somehow to leaders set by example by investing in their own training in lean, agile, and safe. So somehow they were not close, but what I thought I would like to have leaders who are a prototype of what they expect. And that's why I thought investing in my own learning as a leader and showing that I'm doing that, it's maybe the most important thing. What are your thoughts?
My first thought is you love to cheat on this. It's like every week there's at least 2 and often 3 or 4 post-its from you for your vote.
Dancing with the system.
Look, I agree with you that it's super powerful when leaders set the example by investing in their own training. I've started a lot of safe implementations when it's the CIO leading the charge by going, okay, the first thing you do is you, 12 of your key leaders and 12 of your business executives in a room for 2 days for leading safe. And they go, but we're very busy. And I go, yes, but if you want this to succeed, you're going to have to invest in understanding it. And if you can't find 2 days to learn what it is you want to do, there's no chance it's going to work for you. I ran that system I ran it for a long time. I'm perhaps a little bit more flexible now in the way we begin things. But one of the things that it always did was it set the scene for a conversation to go, hey, when your CIO did this course, this is what happened. Or when the CIO does the exam and then everybody else who's thinking about it goes, well, the CIO took it seriously enough. So there's a huge aspect of that in setting the example. But I think, talk is cheap. It's easy to turn up and sit in a training room. But, I settled on the action. Leaders create a safe environment for change because they can go on the course and change nothing. The proof's in the pudding. Are you actually creating an environment where people feel confident to lean into a different way of thinking together and working together?
Oh, now I regret that I moved my post-it away because it was a great explanation. Stephan, your thoughts?
There's a delete key on the keyboard, Niko. Easy as that. Okay. Now, my thinking went like this when it came to measure and grow. And I said, okay, you as a leader, going back to what I said about C-level and senior management, if 90% is about networking and appearance towards your other leaders, and only like 10% is remaining for growing others and creating a safe environment. So you as a leader, you're not always first line. Sometimes you're second line, third line, creating this environment that the others can do the work, right? Growing others. That means for me as a coach, I'm even third line, fourth line, right? So I as a leader creating that environment for leaders creating the environment. That was my thinking, and that led me to this one, Mark.
There's nuances to that. And running this loop of who are you yourself as well as what are you focused on in the leaders and an environment where it's safe to change. One of my favorite coaching conversations with leaders is that you've got cliffs and you've got learning opportunities. And, as you generate change, you're going to make mistakes. And some of those mistakes, they're going to go wrong and you're going to learn something from it. And some of those mistakes, it's going to go so horrendously wrong that you might have jumped off a cliff and there's no recovering and learning from it. And,
Yeah.
what I try and do as a coach is to go, I've got to warn you if there's a cliff ahead, but really what I've got to do is to help you make the most of your learning moments. And I think for a leader trying to create this kind of safe to fail environment, it's that same magic of going, part of it is to steer people away from the cliffs, because there are some mistakes that no matter how much you try for cultural safety, it's really hard. Like, they can be very compromising for your entire company. So avoid the cliffs and create the learning moments. And that's part of that generative change.
But
let me pick
before
them
you,
up. Let me pick them up again. I like your picture, right, of the cliff, and probably Bill Beck, my mentor, would say sometimes you really have to ring fence them, right, so they don't jump off the cliff. Or when it's racing time, they have to find their way. Yeah. Sorry, Niko. Up to you.
easy, no, nothing to sorry. I just wanted to add a different dimension on this too. When I talk with coaches or other leaders, sometimes some coaches do too much because they think I have to save the whole world. And what I ended up are two questions. Is it your responsibility to do it? So is it on your job description, or how you will name it? And if not, can you take the responsibility not to do anything? So you're seeing people running to the cliff. Is it your job to stop them? If not, is the question, can you take the responsibility not to stop them? Usually people say, I can't, I have to do something. But I think it's a cool idea to ask these two questions before you're ending up with saving everything in the planet. You have to think about it. Where is my responsibility? And can I take the response that somebody jumps off the cliff? Maybe somebody say yes, because there's other things more important. I don't know. But these are two questions I ask usually when I coach people about I have too much to do. There's so much stress in the work. So, Mark, you want to say something? It looks like.
No, I was literally just going, I think I've just spent my just one sentence.
Oh, because this was the idea of closing the episode. So we started with wonderful songs, wonderful pictures, and closing the episode is just one sentence this time. And Ali's sentence, he already prepared it, was promote your walking and talking examples. That was Ali's sentence. Stephan, yours?
Yeah, it's similar. Walk the talk and provide the right patterns of behavior at the right time.
Mark, you can say it in a different way.
Yeah, and I'm going to run with what I just ran with instead of my original thinking. And it's, look for cliffs and learning opportunities. When
Great. And in
you're
my
coaching
case,
a leader. Yeah. No, that's it. Go.
Perfect. And in my case, be the person you expect others to be. Eat your own dog food, drink your own champagne, something like that. But yeah, be the person you expect others to be. And with that, we are close to the full hour. Next episode is Mark leading change, if I have seen it right. And with that, I would like to give the final words to Mark. Thank you very much for being with us.
It is leading change. Next episode, next week.
I thought so. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I figure that you looked ahead, and I was just starting to think I should remember what next week is. And I saw you drop that big poster on the mirror. I went, great, Niko's look ahead. So it must be leading change. And it is, I think, the penultimate week in our reprise of our first few episodes. So we're getting through them. I got the notification from the podcast host this week to go, congratulations, your 10th podcast is live. And I've got one queued up from last week and this one, which will make it 12. So they're mounting up. But with that said, we are going to call this a wrap. We hope you've enjoyed talking about leading by example with us. And we hope you'll join us next week for Leading Change.